little bit about my background. I worked in IT during the first part of my career, and I went into Nike as IT, but I went in with the intent to transition to what we called at the time digital media, and did that and produced the first Nike.com for the '96 Olympics, which was a lot of fun. Early days. I'm really excited right now about what's happening with the Portland Creative Conference and Oregon Creative Industries, which is a new trade association formed here to grow the creative economy. So you'll be hearing more about that. In fact, I'm presenting this afternoon at the Oregon Leadership Summit in what will be Oregon Creative Industries' first sort of public presentation as a trade association. Icebreaker, how many people are familiar with Icebreaker? That's what we get for the Friends and Family sale, which does really well here. Icebreaker is based in New Zealand. The product is all made out of merino wool that's grown in the Southern Alps of New Zealand, which is what's shown here. I've had the good fortune to visit several times and sleep overnight in the Southern Alps of New Zealand. If you have not been there, I highly suggest it. It's quite the spiritual experience, actually. It's amazing territory, and the way the sheep are raised, and they go up on the mountain for the summer and they come down for the winter, and the way they grow these layers, these two layers of wool, and the underlining layer is really fine wool, and then the outer layer, when they grow that in the winter, is a little bit more coarse, but still feels really good. So there's this layering system that they've learned to adapt to survive, and we've adapted that into activewear product. So we have product for running, biking, alpine activities, travel, or everyday wear. This is an Icebreaker shirt here. Happens to be the single most comfortable shirt I've ever worn. So it's just great stuff, and really good word of mouth. And no real advertising per se, just good word of mouth, and then there's what we're doing in digital. So, and here in the U.S. is actually probably one of our, the brand is not as well known as it is in other countries, obviously Southern Hemisphere, and with New Zealand, Australia. Europe, we do really well. Canada, we actually do pretty well, probably because of the weather helps. Here, we're still kind of growing that brand awareness. So the case study that I want to talk about is the first 18 months when I got there, which is about August 2009. Within 18 months, we had doubled e-commerce revenue. So I run the e-commerce site and the digital marketing. And that was heavy into the recession. My boss, the guy who became my boss when I was interviewing with him in New Zealand, and he said, yeah, we think we can double the e-commerce business within a couple of years. And I'm sitting there, and I'm in an interview, right? And what are you going to do? You're going to say, no, I don't, have you heard about the recession? It's kind of putting a crimp on people's growth plans. And, so I'm in an interview, and I'm like, absolutely, let's do it. And so, it became really clear they had aggressive growth plans. So the reason this is a good digital marketing case study is because everything else was held constant pretty much. Same website, same territory, U.S., which is where we're doing e-commerce right now, or only e-commerce at this time in the U.S. Same product mix generally. So with everything else being held constant, we doubled revenue mainly through the e-marketing strategy. So that's what I'm here to talk about. Visits, this is primarily through driving traffic. So you can see our visit growth echoed the revenue growth. And we did get page view growth as well, but not as high, which tells me we're getting people to the right page early in their process. So really what I want to talk about is the e-marketing mix and how that's really a part science, which you've probably heard a lot about in this and other conferences, and part art, which we don't hear too much about, the art of getting your e-marketing mix right. And so that's what I'm going to talk about and focus on. For me, it, again, became that sole focus on financial results. So it's very much all about driving revenue through direct e-commerce sales, which if you're pinpointed in your focus, it doesn't matter what your focus is, but for us it was revenue. For you it could be brand or lead generation or whatever that is. But the idea that I want to get across is really be focused on results. You know, I come to too many of these events and we're just talking about social, we're talking about, it's just, you know, I want to hear results. So this is about actual results. So how many people are driving or have clients who are driving an e-commerce site? Okay, great. And how many of folks are, just to kind of get a sense, are from more the agency side or consultant side? And then brand side or client side? Everybody else is here just to audit. No. Anyways, we, you know, created this, when I got there, I was the first person in this role, right? The role was new. And there was one other person. It was a customer service person for e-commerce in the U.S. And there was no budget. So the first thing I did is I decided to, in order to get some money and manage expectations, I just told senior management that I just wanted to try some things. I'm just going to pilot. I'm going to pilot this. I'm going to pilot that. I'm going to see what happens. So that helped to get some starter money and also helped to manage expectations, while at the same time allowing us to learn. So we set up this concept of create your message, test it, learn from it, and invest in it. Invest in what works. So that was the cycle that we got into. The other thing I want to talk about is how to manage your time or your client's time. Maybe if you're advising them on what to do and when. Because when you're just one person, and when you're starting with a 7-figure start and you're asked to double revenue in 2 years, you got to figure out how to manage your time. So I wanted to go after e-marketing because I knew we didn't have money to invest in a new site yet. So, you know, it's about, for me, kind of prioritizing and slicing my time and how do I leverage that. So, could I get my bottle of water out here, guys, or a bottle of water? Thank you. So for me, what I decided to do is buy some time. What I mean by that was go out and hire some outside experts. For us, an email that became eRoy, and thank you, and for search that became Anvil. And we also contracted iSight Design to do some analytics work and a little bit of design work. What that allowed me to do was grow revenue so then I could basically earn some time. And earning some time meant I could hire people. So in the past, I probably would have just said, well, if you want me to double revenue in 2 years, I'm going to need some help to do that. I can't do all that by myself, so I need to hire some people. And that would have been, and that's probably what a lot of people, the approach a lot of people take. Maybe not in the recession like we were, but that was really kind of for me a breakthrough. Instead of sort of whining and asking for more people, and I can't do this without more help, I just decided to basically earn that help by growing revenue. It probably helped that right before this I ran my own business. And again, that was probably one of the best things I did. So I'd always worked for the brand side, mostly large consumer companies. And but then for about 2.5 years, I took a tangent and managed these nonprofits I had founded. And that was a great precursor to being a GM of a business unit, is having to get up every day, and if I didn't do something, then it meant that the revenue wasn't going to come in for the organizations that were paying me to manage them. So it was great training, actually, for running this little business. So the analogy I want to make today in getting the art of your e-marketing correct or right for you, it's going to be different for everybody. The analogy I want to make, just to sort of mix things up a little bit and change it up, I did not want to do kind of just your basic e-marketing presentation we've all heard many times, is I want to sort of make this analogy to how e-marketing channels are structured into results and how songs are structured into by chords. So it takes these music chords to structure songs. And I want to talk about the role of each chord within the song and the analogy over to the role of each e-marketing channel into the overall marketing mix. So how many people play guitar or piano? cool. So I did this talk in Austin a couple months ago. This killed in Austin. Austin loved this talk. But it's a higher percentage of people in Portland, I've noticed, because I did it in Portland in March as well. And but still, so for folks that already play something, this will be like, you'll know this, but folks that don't, you'll learn something new, and it will actually potentially listen to music a little different after this. I don't know. So in music, there's so you got 8 notes in a scale, so there's 8 chords to structure songs around. I'm sorry, there's 8 major chords, so there's a lot of variations of those, but I'm going to stick to mostly the major chords. And I'm mostly talking about Western music, so what I mean by that is a Western as opposed to Eastern. So rock, pop, soul, folk, country, it's that kind of music that we're talking about. So usually you have a root chord that's the beginning and ending of the song. It doesn't matter what that root chord is, just the root chord typically begins and ends the song. So for us, we need to find out what's going to be that primary e-marketing channel that's going to move the dial, that's going to generate revenue. Through some early experimentation, we learned pretty quickly that for us that was email and our opt-in email list, which wasn't that big, but it was like responsive. It's like people were opening and people were clicking, and I'm like, ding. And I had done a lot of email marketing in the past, so that was a great place for us to focus on to start with. So the way songs work, typically, again, I'm going to stick to mostly Western music and keep it fairly simple. So for folks that have had music, I'm just going to keep it fairly simple. So in essence, what happens is, this has to do with kind of the way your brain works as well and what's pleasing to your ear and your brain. It turns out that the chords 1, 4, and 5 are sort of the most pleasing sort of pattern or progression to your ear. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate the music here. So 1, 4, 5. Got to figure out how I'm going to do this. You've heard this thousands of times. So 1, 4, 5, and back to 1. So the role of 4 is typically to create momentum coming out of 1. If you just stayed on 1 the whole song, it'd be pretty boring. So what this does is 4 creates some momentum coming out of 1. It's a nice sort of pleasing interval to your ear. 5, it comes really natural after 4, continuing to build that momentum. The other thing 5 does, though, is it creates this tension that calls for resolution. So your brain, if we ended here, it would be like, okay, thanks a lot. And we'd be like, wait, there's something missing there. Going back to the 1. So that's that's just called a chord progression. And so what we had to do is kind of figure out, as I'm prioritizing my time and slicing my time, what's my progression of where I focus my time in order to get the most impact. So so basically chords, songs are structured as chord progressions through time. And so what I want to do is talk about how that's intentional, again, the role of each chord. And the analogy is there's a role for each of your e-marketing channels. And you got to figure out what that is. So once you figure out your route, that could be search for you, that could be social, could be affiliate. So what is that route, and how can you nail that while you're still trying some other things out? Just to add some variety. So for us, it became email, and then again through some experimentation and piloting, we learned that search also was working pretty well for us. Again, in our work with Anvil. So we sort of, so I spent some time on email, spent a little time on search and working with Anvil on strategy. Went back to email, made sure we nailed that. And then we tossed in some social just to support the campaigns. We weren't getting a lot of results from social, so we didn't focus on it too much, again, because this is about results. So I'm going to play a song and just sort of, just so you can hear this sort of chord progression. So again, it's 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1. So you can hear how things move along. They come back. They move. They create some tension, and then they resolve. So it's kind of like that's the art for me. How do you manage your channels and your time so you get the result you want and you make some art, which is basically get results. This is an example of some of our email templates. Eroy worked with us to change up our email template. I wanted a new template. They had done some email marketing before I got there, but it wasn't really a focus, and it was driving some e-commerce revenue. But again, I saw, based on the response of our opt-in list, I saw a real opportunity here. So you can see part of this growth, 315%, directly attributed to clicks from emails. 315% growth, revenue growth from the previous 18 months over this 18-month case study. So email was a big part of that growth. The list grew 35%. So it wasn't all about list growth. It was about more effective use of that list. This is just an example of some testing we did. On the left, we did this test, gift with purchase. And on the right, we did a test of 25% off. And we saw what worked well there, and we also tested 20% off. It turns out 20% off was about equivalent to gift with purchase as far as revenue generation. And so we knew kind of if we really need to move the dial. Icebreaker's a little spendy just because it's premium product, and it's well worth it. But a little bit of discounting goes a long ways with consumers here in the U.S., especially during this time period. So here you can see when we redid the templates, you can't see it before and after, but part of the point of this template is to highlight our photography, which is really strong, part of our brand, and also provide some room to highlight the products in the two the lower left and lower right touts. So the next chord I want to talk about is the 6 minor chord, and that's probably the chord that's tossed in after 1-4-5. That's the one that gets tossed into the mix, probably more than any other, again in Western music. So the minor chord creates, it's sort of this dark, mysterious sound, right? So there's something a little different about that. So it creates a little bit of a twist, a little bit of some darkness and mystery. And you've heard this in a lot of right? That's like your typical 50s rock and roll chord pattern. So that throws in this minor, the whole mystery of love thing or something. And so what I want to do is kind of toss the minor into a song that was the theme song to the movie Bonnie and Clyde. So this is a movie in the 60s. It was pretty seminal at the time because it was a pretty violent movie for its time when this movie Bonnie and Clyde came out. And so I guess it was rural based, so they decided to have a banjo play the lead. It was basically the theme song to the movie. So the composer Earl Scruggs thought, well, this is about murder and grand theft, so I better throw in a minor chord to make it a little dark and mysterious. So it's hard to make the banjo sound dark, but toss in a minor chord and that helps. So. So that you can hear that minor chord in there. So for us, okay, you guys, what is the dark, mysterious corner of digital marketing that no one wants to talk about for whatever reason? I already mentioned it once. Starts with an A. Affiliate marketing. Nobody wants to talk about affiliate marketing, but it really works. And why is that? I don't know. You come to a conference like this and I don't know. Was there a session in the boot camp about affiliate marketing? Anybody at the boot camp? So this is like the dark, mysterious corner of digital marketing. But I will tell you, it does work. And for folks that, and I think the reason is because there's some hucksterism that's sort of associated with affiliate marketing. But it's also a lot of the big brands, most of them are doing it. They just don't talk about it that much. So basically, you have an affiliate network partner. For us, it's called Avant Link. And that network partner has a network of content sites or coupon sites, basically sites that attract a lot of eyeballs around specific topics. Then you basically have advertising on those sites, text ads or display ads, and they send you qualified traffic, and they get, if there's a transaction, they get a piece of the action. The affiliate network gets a piece of the action, and of course, then we get revenue. The affiliate network is also sort of acting as escrow account. So we pay the affiliate network, then they track the clicks and the transactions and make the payouts to the affiliates. So we wanted to try that out. We tossed in some affiliate marketing as sort of our minor chord in the e-marketing mix. And so I started spending some time getting that program ramped up in between the emails. And Bill was doing pretty good with search. And again, we were doing strategy, and they were doing execution. And so everything was going along, and then we'd sprinkle in some social just to check in and see how that was doing. This is a look at right around this time. This is 8 months out of the 18-month case study. So this is a look at percentage of revenue by those three channels, email, search, and affiliate, directly attributed to activity in those channels. In other words, click-through to purchase. So this isn't about sort of like they saw an email and 2 days later they bought, or they saw a search ad and 3 days later they bought. This is directly attributed revenue. So you can kind of see what that mix looks like and how email was driving quite a bit in the blue, search in the yellow, and affiliate in the red. And you can see we got better at affiliate as we went. We got better at all this stuff as we went, just because we were doing that test, learn, and invest model. So Icebreaker is a private company. So there's only percentages that I'm going to talk about. I'm not talking about dollar value, just percentages for this talk. But you can see here, I mean, some months, we focused on search a little more, eased up on email. Some months really blasted out the numbers in email. So the last chord I want to talk about in the progression is the 2 chord. And the 2 is interesting because what it does is it provides momentum coming out of the 4, but it also provides tension that's actually released by the 5. So the 5 chord, remember, normally is the one creating tension that wants to be released back to 1. So 2 gives you a chance to sort of use 5 to release tension. And the whole point is by structuring songs this way, composers can just create interesting things for your ear and your brain. So this is the last song. So this progression, I just want to play what this sounds like because the 2 chord. So I'm just going to play. So that 1, 4, 2, 5. So you kind of hear all that. And that's continuing to build interest, and it's going somewhere, right? But you're still not done. Go back to the 1 to kind of like, okay, we're finished. Thank you. Again, you've heard this in thousands of songs. You just probably haven't thought about what's going on and why that's happening, or why the composer chose to go make whatever change they're making. So you can kind of hear that too going in there. You slip it in, you don't dwell on it, and it makes a little bit of a difference, makes things a little more interesting. So for us, what's going to be a chance to kind of build some momentum on top of what we're already doing. Again, social, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about social, because social, even though we're a word-of-mouth brand, it just wasn't getting results. And personally, my personal opinion, there's a bit of a disconnect in the industry, unless we're completely unique, between how much time we spend talking about social and what actually gets results. So I don't know, I'm ready to move on. I don't know about you guys. I mean, I think we all know what to do. We just have to execute on it. Same with us. We have some ideas and plans and strategy that's relatively new for social. So we know it's out there, and we know we want to spend more time and money on it. But it's certainly not, we don't obsess over it. We just, one thing we have nailed, which I think is really important, is we've nailed listening, and we've nailed response to that listening. So we've got a dedicated customer service person that's just out there listening using Scout Labs. I know there's a lot of tools we could use for that. We use Scout Labs to listen, and we respond throughout the day on Twitter and Facebook from a customer service perspective. So what we decided was we needed to grow our opt-in list to hit that next holiday target. So within this case study, there's 2 holiday periods, which are obviously our biggest sales areas. So what we decided to do was, in order to grow our opt-in list, we tossed in a little sweepstakes. And the objective of that sweepstakes was to grow our opt-in list. So it was a viral everybody wins sweepstakes. So everybody who entered from our opt-in list and who got their friends to enter won something. Literally, it's not like a chance to win. You win something. You get 20% off. You get a free top. You get free socks. You get 50% off. So it was very valuable prizes, actually. So, and everybody wins. So this is kind of the slide that tells the whole story of the case study. And so you can see here again, revenue. This is, instead of percentage of revenue, this is actual revenue without numbers, sorry, but you can see the relative growth. That's the important thing. Revenue of each of these channels directly attributed to email, search, and affiliate. So blue for email, yellow for search, red for affiliate. Over the course of this 18 months, was September 2009 through February 2011. And so for me, when I first started, which was August of 2009, I mean, where we were revenue-wise compared to where the targets that were set for me for fourth calendar quarter, it was pretty daunting, and it looked like a big hill I had to climb. So that's where we got going on some of these channels, right, to understand how they worked for Icebreaker and start to spin and learn from them and leverage it up. So because of the work we did in email and search, we hit that first target. And that's where I talked about, in order to do that, I bought myself some time by hiring eRoy, hiring Anvil, and hiring iSight. The results of those hires and my work with them achieved the targets in Q4. And also you see there's a pretty big number in February 2010, after that holiday period. That's an end-of-line sale. So we're closing out certain product. So then the fiscal year end comes for us. That's March 31, the end of March. And because I had hit those targets, I basically had earned myself some time. So I got headcount approval, and I went out and hired some people, only after I grew the revenue. So I started with an e-marketing manager, basically to take these programs to the next level. And hired another customer service rep because we were growing the business, et cetera. Then, again, the targets then for that following holiday were huge. So I'm like, okay, how can we ramp up for that? And that's where we came up with that idea for the sweepstakes to grow the opt-in list, because that was going to be our most immediate impact. Meanwhile, we're learning from search, we're learning from affiliates. You can see each of those areas are growing, especially affiliates. And then we nailed the fourth quarter 2010. And that's where, so within that 18-month period, doubled revenue. So how's this worked since then? When I first did this case study, it was for Innotech in the spring. So, but since then, how has this continued to work? So right now, the revenue growth for this fiscal year is 75%, more than 75% actually. So we're just doing the same thing. We're just getting better at it by that strategy of create, basically that pilot strategy of pilot testing and learning and investing. We did, because of that result, we did get money then this past year to invest in a brand new site. Brand new site, brand new platform. So we're on the Demandware e-commerce platform. Summit Projects did the redesign work for us out in Hood River. And so we did get to launch a new site. So now it's not just about the e-marketing where everything else is held constant. Now we have a new site to play with more capability and functionality and higher conversion and higher average order value capability. So you know, the one metric here after we launched that was Black Friday growth grew 125% over last year. And last year was big. So the new site really came through. And one immediate bump was average order value went up, basically because everybody was buying, on average, one extra piece of clothing per order. So that's how average order value went up. And that was almost immediate after launching the new site. So again, the earning time and investing and basically creating jobs for the region, we've grown from 2 people to 10 today. And I'll probably hire 7 or 8 over the next 12 months. I'm sorry. It would be like 15 months because our new fiscal year starts in April. So again, just to recap, the idea that I want to talk about is getting the mix right for you and how do you create the art in your role, in your job, in your company, with your clients, et cetera. And just to recap, I talked about the importance of focusing on the result, like just a pinpoint focus. When I got there, so I had the interview with my boss, who became my boss, right? Oh, yeah, we think we can double revenue. No problem. And then I was like, how are we going to do that? And then it was when I got there, it was like, well, you're, like mainly, what I mainly care about is that this is my boss talking, hit your monthly targets. It was very clear that if I didn't hit my monthly targets, there was going to be some sort of repercussion, right? So it was literally, hit your targets, keep your job. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way. I think that's the best thing he could have told me. That's highly motivating. It creates focus, and I loved it. So again, this idea of treating everything as a pilot, this create, test, learn, and invest cycle for e-marketing. And then it talked about how to manage your time, leverage your time with a little bit of money. Again, hiring agencies. You know, agencies don't want me to say this, but it's really not that much money to get started with some of these folks. And then you get great returns, so you invest more in them, and they get benefit from that. So it works really well. And then earn some time, hire the right people. Okay, questions?
So we've got a question here for you, Steve. Would you still recommend using sweepstakes, the sweepstakes idea, if you're a nonprofit?
Yeah, I think as long as you manage the sweepstakes and it's on brand. For us, what we did was on brand. It was, I don't know, there isn't a whole lot of risk as long as you nail your terms and conditions, your rules, right? There's a certain way you have to operate sweepstakes by state law and multiple states' law. So it's good to get an advisor on that part of it. But I know sweepstakes work well on Facebook as well, contests and sweepstakes. And they keep changing their rules around that. But yeah, I think for anybody, as long as it's on brand, yeah.
We got a couple of do you take requests?
I don't play that much anymore, and I haven't for years. And I used to play, I had a band all through high school and college, and then I got into theater, and then I got into recording, and so I don't really play that much anymore. So I had to work really hard to get those 3 songs to sound good. So I actually don't take requests.
So what didn't you see from the, as far as the ROI from social media that caused you not to focus on it?
Again, we were looking for and might be sort of hunting on the wrong path for social, but what I needed to see was actual direct results from actions. So directly attributable results. So brand building is great, and again, we're there. We're in the space. We're active. We have a resource. It's not dedicated, but a resource that's on there doing out. So I just divided social into outreach and response, listening and response. So listening and response we nailed first because I really wanted to get that right. Outreach, we're still just kind of playing around, but we have a new strategy. So that outreach did not result in the type of direct, a lot of social media experts out there are going to be like, well, of course not. This is about brand building and engagement, and the stuff will come later. And I get that, but again, I'm very focused on results, and it's worked really well for us. So we want to nail how to get results from social, as well as being there for engagement, listening, response.
So those direct, measurable, actionable items that you could jump in on.
Yep.
How do you suggest deploying this e-marketing mix for a B2B?
I think it's just that same, that blue model. I think it works for B2B or B2C. If you just, this guy that I know who spoke at a couple of my conferences a while back, he wrote this book called Do It Wrong Quickly, which I thought was a great title for for a book about digital marketing. And that's kind of the attitude we took, is like, just try a few things, but there was strategy behind them. They were thought out, they were on brand, but they were like definitely like try a few things and closely measure it against objectives. So it's the same for B2B. It's just that email list might work just as well in B2B. Social might not, but certainly search and email and even affiliates have done right could work well.
And we had a request to kind of, if you could go over that affiliate plan just a little bit again.
More detail?
A little bit more detail.
Yes, so for us, again, there's, I don't know how many people have experience with affiliate programs, but for us it was finding the right network. So we use AvantLink as our affiliate network. AvantLink, they have a fairly intense screening process for the affiliate sites that they accept in. In other words, they look for some quality sites with quality traffic. And then we further filter that. So we don't just accept everybody who asks to be in the Icebreaker network. We actually vet that site to see if it's appropriate. So we're fairly picky about the sites. And these could be, blogs, they could be coupon sites, just general content sites. So it's kind of about filtering. We filtered the filter just to get the quality. And then we just put the programs out there. So let's say we're launching a campaign. Let's just use Black Friday since we just did that. So for Black Friday, we just put all of our black items on sale. So we say black is the new black, and it's X% off all black products. And it does really well for us. And so, we do search campaign about that, and then we launch affiliate ads about that, and the affiliate networks subscribe to our feed for those ads, and then they send the traffic through. And they get 8%, and then the affiliate network gets, I can't remember how much percent, and then the rest is just revenue.
All right. I want to say thank you to Steve Gehlen. That was awesome. Love the banjo.
All right.